Welcome CSC230 to ex3 for spring 2022, and I'm re-recording this because we did this in Gorm in fall 2021, and we're going to do this in Replit, and we're also going to go into Photopea to do some photo editing to put our image onto our ex1 page. So even though it's ex3, we're still going to use our ex1 folder, our ex1 directory that we've been working on inside our Repel. And here's an example here. This is from the fall. I don't have an example from the winter because I haven't done the winter one yet. We are going to do that. But we're going to do a similar kind of thing here where we're going to float an image to the right of our lists. So that's the way we're going to set it up. That's all we're going to do. We're going to find an image. We're going to make it the correct size. We're going to put it on our page. We're going to float it to the right using CSS. We're going to put it in a figure element. And then we're also going to use a fig caption down here. And we'll put a border around our image. So it's not going to require a whole lot of work. I'll show you the HTML just so you can see what's involved. And again, this is from the fall, so there's a figure image. And again, just like the section element, the figure element is really meant just to hold an image. It's more of an organizational element for identifying elements on a page. So we're going to put our image inside a figure, and you can see here's an image source. This is Beer by the Fire from the fall. And then also the fig caption is inside that figure, and that just has Beer by the Fire caption inside there, and that's just text that's inside there. So that's all we're going to put on our page. And then for the CSS, we don't have a whole lot to do with CSS. Here we have selectors for figure, and you can see we're using the float property to float it to the right of any HTML that's after it. So we're actually going to put the figure before what it's floating after, meaning we're going to put our image here first, and then it's going to float to the right of this stuff. So it kind of comes out of HTML flow and floats over there. And we'll do a little bit of floating, but then we're also going to use some flexbox to align elements on a page as well in kind of this column format. Here's where we have that kind of greater than sign, which means the direct descendant of figure. So this is image inside a figure, but sometimes we can use this greater than sign to indicate that it's the first one inside there. So you don't always have to do that. It's probably the only image inside a figure, but we can use that to indicate direct descendant. So when you see that or when you see a space, they work kind of the same way, but there may be situations where you may need to show the first image inside of figures. I guess that's the way that really means. So that's what has the border around it, because we can't put a border around figure because it would go around the caption as well. So here's our styling for the fig caption. Here's our styling for the image itself, which is really just the border. And then here's our styling for the figure, which we put a little space, margin top, margin right, just to position it a little bit better on the page so that things kind of line up in here. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to go back to my Repel for spring 2022. We're going to work in Photopea, and we're going to find an image that kind of matches up with something from my winter stuff. I don't know what, feeling cold, I'm not sure what kind of image I'll have, but we'll find something there to put in there. So for the next part of this, I'm going to do that work in Photopea, and then we'll start working in Replit. Okay, I'm back in Replit now, and I have my spring 2022 page opened up. I still have my other one open just so I could see what I want. Now, I want an image here. I think that's 320 by 200, I believe. I think that's what we want for that one. So 320 by 200, I believe we're going to use that size. So we'll remember that because when we go into Photopea, we'll set it up for that size. So we're going to put this right in here. So this is going to be an image that'll go right here. And this is the spring version. And I have my index page open up. This is my main page. So I'll open up my index page in ex1 and make sure that's opened. And where our image is going to go is going to be before the H2s of the list. So it's going to go here. So that's where we're going to put it, but we don't have it yet. So let's go make an image, and I'm going to go to photopea.com, and it's real easy if you don't have Photoshop, and very quick to do it online. And they have new project here, but I'm just going to go File New, and I'll set it up the size that I want, which is 320 by 200, and I'll hit Create. This name will be your PSD file, and I could just call it ex3 winter pic. Then when I download it, it'll have Jpeg on it, so I could do that. I could even put a dash in here. That way it'll be all named already. So I'll hit create. Now there'll be nothing in here. You can see it's not very big, so I'll zoom in a little bit. Now I have to find an image. So again, I'll open another tab now, and I don't have a lot here for the winter feel cold. You can put snow stuff if you like to ski or anything you like to do in the winter, whatever it is. I have drink dark beers. I guess I'll go with a beer thing again. So I'll just put dark beers. I'll just put dark beers. And I'm sure I'll find something that looks okay. Here's some nice looking dark beers here. Here's one here about a dark beer. That looks fine. So I'll right click on this and copy image. And I'll go back to Photopea and I'll just paste it. Now you can go to edit paste or use the shortcut Control V. I think you can use Control V whether you're on a Mac or on Windows, but it has Command V if you're on Mac, because I'm on a Mac. So I think I could use Control V, will still work. And there it is. Now, it's gigantic. That's why I'm not seeing anything. So make sure you put on transform handles, and I'll zoom out so I can see the edge of that. So if you have a real big image, it's going to be bigger than your canvas that you're looking at. If you had a small image, it might fit in there, and even a tiny image might even be smaller. But you don't want to find an image any smaller than 320. So we're scaling it down to make it that size. So I'm going to grab on the corner here and then hold Shift and kind of fit it in there. Then I'll zoom in a little bit before I'm done scaling it, just to make sure it fits okay. And I guess that's okay. Normally I wouldn't squash it. I'll squash it just a little bit to get a little bit of the bottom in there. And I'll get it as close as I can to fit the page. I guess that's okay. It doesn't look very winter-like, although I think those are hops. So I'll put that in there. And one thing I just want to point out, I hit enter. Now when you scale something, now you don't want to scale it again, but when you scale something using these handles, you have to either hit the checkbox or you have to hit enter when you're done. So I'm going to put it back to the way it was, and I'll hit enter. I just wanted to point out that I did that. So you could even turn off these transform handles when you're done. If you need to do any editing to this image, you can. Now, moving it around doesn't require you hitting enter, but scaling it requires you to hit enter. And one thing I'm going to do here, I think I'm just going to sharpen it a little bit, because when you scale something very big down to something very small, it tends to get a little blurry. So I'm going to go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharp Mask. And typically you're going to leave threshold on 0, meaning it's going to sharpen everything. Radius somewhere around 1 or 2 pixels, so I'll put it like 1 pixel is fine. 1.2, that's what Photoshop uses by default. So somewhere in there, 1.3, something like that is fine. Now 142% is a little much. I'll usually go anywhere from 50 to 100%, but since it's so small, I'll put it up to 100%. It doesn't matter if it's a little more sharpened. You just don't want it to look over sharpened and have really halo looking artifacts in there. So, and what I mean, if you take the radius up, you'll see a lot of like over contrasting kind of halo looking kind of things. So you want to keep this down lower, around 1 or 2 pixels, somewhere in that area, and maybe this somewhere around 100%, something like that. Should be fine. And it just looks a little crisper. If you turn this on and off, you get a little more crispness, and that's okay. And that's all I'm going to do. And this is a PSD right now because it has layers, but I don't need the PSD. All I need to do is just go to File and then Export as JPEG, and it'll download a JPEG. I'll put it at 70 or 80% is fine. And it's real small, so you could use higher quality, why not? It's not going to be very big in terms of file size. So even if you did it 100%, that's fine. But even doing a little bit will compress the file size quite a bit, so your page loads quicker, but that's fine. 80% should be fine. So I'll hit save, and that should download to your downloads. So this is in my downloads right now, E3 winter header. Now I want to get that into Replit. So I'll close this up. I don't need to double click, open it. I just need to find it. And I'll go to my downloads, and there I am. And there it is. It's right here. I'm going to close this up in a minute, but let me just go back to Replit and make sure I get this in here. We're going to drag this image into EX1, just like our winter header. Wait a minute. I shouldn't call it winter header. It should be just winter pic. I'm sorry. Make sure you do that. Don't call it the same thing that we have over there. It's not a header, it's a pic. So this is the floated pic. I could even call it floated pic. So luckily I caught that. So ex3 winter floated pic is better than winter header. And back in Photopea, you could double click here and call that pic or whatever, or floated pic, and export it. So do that. Don't do what I did. Make sure before you do that, you call it winter pic and not header, because it's not a header. We already have a header. All right, so we have that now, and I gave it a different name. So let me drag it in here into the EX1 folder. And there it is, ex3 winter floated pic. And I don't think I need anything else, so I'm done. I'm not even going to save this. I could always go find another image. That wasn't that hard. We just pasted it in there, and that's it. So I'll get out of Photopea. I'll close up that window, get out of my dark beer search, and I guess I'll leave this open for a few minutes in case I need to look at this. But for now, what I want to do is go back to my HTML, and I just want to make sure it's ex3-winter floated pic. And if you just called it pic, that would certainly be easier to remember. But where I'm going to put it is in a figure element in here after the paragraph and before the H2. So I'm going to hit return after the P, and I'll just put figure. And I could even do this. I could do figure and do fig caption. I could do it all at once. Fig caption. And hit tab. And now it actually put my figure element and it put the fig caption inside there. And now also inside there after figure, right here, I'll hit enter again. And I'll do img tab. And now this is where I'm going to put the source name of ex3-winter floated pic, unless you called yours pic.jpeg. Again, the longer name, there's just more of a chance of screwing it up. For alt, I'll just put floated pic. That's all I need in there. And it's usually recommended to put the size in here in the HTML. Let me move this over. I don't really need this here. So I can also put another attribute in the HTML. I could put width. And remember, when we're in HTML, we use equal and we use quotes. So I'll use width equals, and in quotes, I'll put 320, and then a space, and I'll put another attribute, and put height equals, and then in quotes, I'll put 200, and finish the quotes, and make sure everything's colored properly. And again, these are just different attributes I'm putting in there. It's recommended to put the width and height attributes in there. If you don't do that, it'll be fine. And we won't change the width and height in here. We'll do it through CSS if we need to change the size of anything. And the fig caption, you could put that in there right away. I could just go in there. We don't have to put a paragraph or anything. You could just put dark beers if that's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. And I'll just put 3 dots there. And I'll check it out. See what it looks like. And there it is. That's what it should look like. Now, we're going to center that with CSS and adjust the spacing, but that's where I want it. I want it in between my paragraph and here. So what we're going to do next is work with the CSS. So I think what I'll do is I'll take a break here and we'll finish up with part 2, just doing the CSS. So that won't take long. So stay tuned for part 2 of ex3 floated pic.